Good evening and welcome to the Fatal Vision podcast. I'm your host, James McGinniss. This is our first broadcast of 2025. It's actually canned, it's not being broadcast, but it's the first recording out of the year. And we've got Billy here, Billy Ledden, my co host. Billy,
Yeah.
welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming me to the show. I'm glad to be back, man. A lot of
We
travel
had
for
a,
me in the past
yeah,
few months. A lot of
we had
travel.
a, we had
So,
a Christmas hiatus
yeah.
to observe the full season of Glory.
Yep. Is Christmas
Uh,
finally over now?
yeah, it ended on January 6th, apparently, according to some calendars. But
Okay.
yeah, we've got February 2nd will be another rite of Christian passage.
We'll enter into when do we enter into the Lenten season?
March this year.
March. Okay. And will we be
Yeah.
recording during Lent?
Oh, every day as it'll be a penance, an act of penance. We're not going to give up recording.
Yeah, we can't do that.
No,
It just means we should be recording more.
more and more, and people should be listening more. Because by then we're gonna have the full stack out for you guys. They'll send it to you to your wherever you get your podcasts. If you're subscribed, it'll just pop into you'll have all 10 episodes, 12 episodes in your inbox tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
2025 is our year.
yes, it's your year. It's all of our years. We're going on to all the socials, the TikTok, and the whole thing. And we can make like these choppy like edits of one of us giving like a rant and like reducing it to like a 20-second thing, go viral.
I like the YouTube thumbnails that show the podcasters.
Like like
They're
their face in super stark relief.
yeah, and it usually looks like they're about to yell or cry.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be
Like
well.
this really intense moment. Like
That's what.
I watched a podcast recording of a theologian we both like named David Bentley Hart.
Mm,
And the subject,
mm.
the title of it was like the one question no religion can answer. Dot dot
That's what I.
dot.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. Because and it shows him like really, I guess portrait mode. Like you can see every crevasse of his face and like every pore,
Yeah.
and there's like these giant, bold, loud fonts and colors. It's really nice.
So we'll have some
Um,
YouTubes that are like Jeffrey McDonald said
this is the one.
what?
The one video Jeffrey McDonald doesn't want you to see.
Yeah, but we can't use that every time.
Is what. No, it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we could say rare, or we could say extremely rare recording unearthed.
I've noticed that a common form of clickbait, it's really taken off in the past few years. It's framing something as an admission or a confession or a breaking of silence. So it'll be like Tom Brady breaks his
Breaks his,
silence
yeah.
on Belichick, and then you click the article and the quote will be like, "It was great playing for him. It was good. He's a great coach."
Well, I think that comes to mind when you share that is there's always these Sopranos clickbait. It's like David Chase finally reveals what happened at the end.
Yep.
That's a good one. Um, yeah, we've joked a lot about like as the most depraved ways that we could get people to listen with um, different hooks about things I could use to exploit my father's legacy to try to get to just squeeze the pennies out of people. But we've probably already covered all that with the
James
premium
McGinniss reads
premium
father's emails on air.
yeah a premium cast for subscribers only. Um, for or for not subscribers, for
The
donors,
fans only.
select donors, special precious gifts. Yeah. Oh, we do have some feedback we wanted to share from one of our beta listeners, which was
Uh-oh.
Billy's own mom said this was a snooze. This whole podcast was a big snooze fest.
Yeah.
She was
Well,
sitting right over there, right
yeah,
behind
that
me.
couch.
Yeah.
Um, well, the context was that my mom and I went to visit James and his beautiful family in December. My mom's partner, Dave, a partner. I never know what to call Dave. Boy, if are you a boyfriend when you're 66 years old?
My mom always found that incredibly condescending, but they didn't have partner 20 years ago. No one said that.
Yeah, yeah. My mom says friend, my friend Dave.
That's worse than all two combined.
Yeah, you think she's like minimizing their love?
I wouldn't feel good if I was Dave, but they're they're not going to ever hear this, right? There's no chance.
Well, based on how my mom apparently
Yeah, so
feels
that's
about
the
me.
story. Anyways, yeah. So your mom's
Dave and my mom have been together since 2011. So, I mean, they're doing all right.
18 years.
Is that
Oh
it?
no, has that been 18 years since 2011 yet?
I can't really keep track of
No.
time.
Oh, it will be at the end of Trump's second first term.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sorry about all that stuff we said before too.
Yeah, we are not political at all.
Yep,
We're
that's
just true
over.
crime aficionados,
That's
and
over.
well, anyways, we never got to the punchline of the
So
story.
I'll tell you. So my mom's partner Dave,
Yeah,
her friend Dave,
right.
he taught himself how to chainsaw carve wooden sculptures, and
Mm.
he makes these bears that are very popular. And James's daughter really took to the wooden bears at my house. Would even refer to my house as Bear House. So Dave made one for James's daughter. My mom and I brought it out. We had this lovely time together, sat around and reminisced. And when the topic of our creative projects came up, my mom started screaming at James about how he needs to work on his book.
Mm.
Maybe he should employ me as an editor
Yeah,
and keep the project moving. And
this is after she screamed at me about not getting on the Wi-Fi, so she could get
yeah,
her. Yeah.
yeah. And then James said that his creative efforts have been going toward this podcast, and my mom said, "Well, that's kind of a snooze compared to the
Oh,
book
that's
project."
that was the context.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought she was saying the Blackburn episode sounded interesting, but the podcast as a whole would be a snooze. Anyway, it was very, very, very enlightening because I didn't realize that people were gonna just dismiss it out of hand.
But then
Like, imme-
I played her an episode on the ride home, and she was laughing, and she thought we were very cute.
oh, that's good. That's the best we could hope for. And I know Mickey and Mary will listen. They're probably thrilled that this is happening, right?
Mickey and Mary told us that they could listen to us talk all day,
Forever
all
and
night.
ever. The two
Yeah.
funniest men they'd ever encountered. And then within 20 minutes, this is an hour ride. They were on their phones at 1 in the morning. Anyway,
Yeah.
check. Anyway, we're not that interesting to them. But the other thing, just as a heads up, the chapter tonight is about 3 pages.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
figure we're just gonna catch you up, catch up. The other thing that we were playing with recently, or I was the Google Notebook LM podcast AI thing. It was so funny.
Hmm.
With the fake the guy sounds like so real, like you said, right? He's just like, yeah.
Ah, and then, well, the woman
The
too.
woman is It's like, right, yeah.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so I was able to make them talk about our podcast, do a podcast review about our podcast.
Hmm.
They weren't able to stay focused for the whole 12-minute excerpt.
Yeah. Yeah. They started reviewing the book.
Yeah, they keep, yeah, it's not, I like had to, I put in like 10 qualifiers. Like, you're not talking about anything but James and Billy as people and
Yeah.
whether you would want to listen to this podcast.
They seemed to think that we were building suspense, though, that we were doing a good job of not showing our cards and letting listeners reach their own conclusions about what happened in the case.
And
Yeah.
they love saying like they don't make it easy for you. It's like it's part of the appeal. They just leave it out there, the messiness. There's no conclusion.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't know what happened.
yeah, it's a complete mystery. And can I even stay objective as the son of the author?
That's
It's the
like the central tension of the podcast. Like, can
Yeah.
James maintain his objectivity?
And
That,
then the other thing was that you were more composed and I was more impulsive and like
yeah,
wild.
much more measured. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Well,
Do you feel like we were offline? We were talking about this new Joan Benet Ramsey
is it Joan
documentary.
Benet or John Benet?
John Benet, sorry,
Okay.
I actually don't know.
Okay.
But the new series on Netflix about her by the director Joe Berlinger, and somehow while the documentary clearly takes the position that the parents didn't do it, the true crime Reddit world is like unanimous on the parents being guilty. Do you think that's just the bias of the true crime junkie? Like they all just think everybody's guilty? Because I got when I look at the Fatal Vision stuff on Reddit, I'm very reassured by it because it's such a slam dunk. But
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think the part of what's so fascinating and why our podcast is so appealing is because we're grappling and trying to make sense with the true crime echo chamber that's holding everybody's attention hostage.
yeah.
If you're listening to this, you've been living it probably the last 6 or 7 years, day and night. Um, so we're grappling with that and we're trying to make sense of it. And what does it all mean that the Reddit pages are always saying that the prime or at least initial suspect is always guilty 100% of the time, which is
Yeah.
not always, and so like that's great for McDonald's and us, our cause. Um, but then it gets pretty annoying when there's, like someone who's never even been charged with a crime, like the John Bonet's parents.
And there's
Um,
no physical evidence to link them
yeah,
to it at all,
yeah.
nor even a plausible theory.
No, so that it just shows you sort of the whims of things, and I mean the same reason they're susceptible to the same thing that the legacy media was susceptible to in the at the time, which is just endless speculation.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's fun, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of the other case. Well, there was the New Yorker article about this lady who killed like 35 babies in the UK, and
She was a
that
nurse.
article suggested that she didn't do it, or that the case was not sound. And when I logged on to the Reddit true crime, they were just they couldn't stop laughing that someone would ever think she was innocent, and that the article was so stupid and thin.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
wasn't. I read the article. I mean, it was
yeah,
thorough, and the argument
yeah.
seemed
So
pretty hard
yeah,
to
so it's just
argue on.
scary. Yeah, you don't know what you're gonna run into online, right? It could be a complete bust, or it could be the keys to the kingdom.
Right. Like you
I
could
mean,
happen
where do you
upon this
fall?
podcast and
Yeah, that's the thing
you're
is this
free.
podcast is about to be is going to be basically treated in the same way where people are going to be obsessing over everything we say and do
Right.
on the air, off the air. And there's going to be like hundreds of thousands of people on the Fatal Vision podcast subreddit just posting inane posts like, well, what do you think? Like, why do you guys think James or Billy sounded tense on episode 13?
Yeah.
And then there'd be all like, well, it's well known it was in the Netflix documentary that they got into a brief altercation right before when they went live. That kind of thing.
James it has a bit of a hair trigger temper, and Billy tends to escalate when Billy has this weird masculine chip on his shoulder where he has to raise the stakes a bit, and I mean that's part of what fueled their creative brilliance.
Yeah, then it's like, well, I'm definitely falling to a Billy. I'm in the Billy camp, and um, I also there's this great viral video you shared that of these two basketball announcers, like where the one guy just starts screaming at the other one, like you have been driving me, you humiliated me, and it's been going on for 2 days, and then everyone in the comments is like, guys, this was just a joke. They were never serious. There's a lot of
Yeah,
smug bunny stuff going on there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to having us be on the other side of it. It's fascinating as someone who used to obsess over other people and things and places,
Right.
that I will now be the one that people are obsessed with. Like
Yeah, I'm very,
untold. Yeah,
I'm
it's
very, mu-
fascinating. The role reversal.
I'm very much looking forward to surrendering any semblance of a private life
Oh no,
in
yeah.
in the service of this work and mission.
If anyone wants to know how to launch a hit podcast, hit me up.
Hit us
Send me
up.
a
Hit us
private
up. We're
me
here to help you. We're here to
Yeah,
help
hit
you,
us
man.
up. We're here to, yeah, I will. I have responded to over 800 private messages today alone about how to get your podcast off the ground. Uh,
Mindset, growth orientation.
oh, is this back to your boy on LinkedIn?
I
Or is
don't
that,
know.
oh, that's just okay. Oh, we're not going to name him because he might listen. Because we're going live with this tomorrow. This is gonna be fucking. I did send episode 1 and 2 to Michael. He
Oh
never
man.
replied.
Oh, that's
I'm sure
not.
he's just yeah, he's not gonna listen.
I don't think Michael. I don't think Michael's going to be retaining much moving forward.
No, I think it's safe to say that he'll never have made it to episode 13 by the time he's here. That's okay. Um, so yeah, Michael's just a guy we know. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yep.
Not a real, no interesting backstory there. I mean,
But
you
when I
know,
when I saw Michael face to face, he told me he couldn't wait for you to send an episode over. So,
yeah. And then I saw him on a couple days later, and he told me to send it, and I sent it, and that was the end of then we'll never have to talk about it again. Um, and he'll probably say like, whatever happened to that podcast, and we'll be on episode 45 or 6.
bro, I had people with my recent essay tell me, just so you guys, we'll put it in the chat, in the
No,
episode
in the
description.
episode description, please.
I published an essay. I had friends tell me they read the first paragraph and they realized it was gonna be too much. They couldn't relate to the subject matter, so they just moved on.
Someone said that?
A couple people were like, "Yeah, man, I realized like I don't understand enough about Bruce Springsteen for this to make sense, so I stopped." And in two cases, I said, "I think you'll understand everything just fine. Just trust me." And they did come back and tell me that they did, but people don't want to engage with shit.
No, it's the most human of responses to shit being presented or invited. You're being invited to look at shit or think about shit. I don't really care.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that's not why we're doing it. We're not going to be at the Thanksgiving dinner table like, guys, wait. You got to listen to this episode of our podcast. Like everybody shut the fuck up.
well, no, if I was drinking, I certainly would.
Yeah.
I'd be like, everybody shut. This is fucking the best part right here. And then somewhere through the fog, you just remember someone just staring with dead eyes, like at the wall.
Yeah. I mean that's every holiday.
Yeah, it's
That
pretty
every
dope shit.
holiday people are holding the phones up to others and saying, "You got to see this video. It's the funniest thing.
That's
It's the funniest
sometimes,
thing."
oh, just keep watching. It's 7 minutes, 7 more minutes.
And then they see your attention drifting and they're like, "No, this part."
I always do that with like road rage videos of, it's not actually funny, but I thought it was funny when I was by myself, and now I'm just showing a picture of a guy getting assaulting someone else and getting arrested, and it's just a lot of judgment coming through, loud, very loud.
Any other beta listeners with feedback? I'm about to start reading for
Oh
anybody
yeah, no,
anybody
we got it. Yeah,
keeping score.
we should get to the material. I had no other feedback to offer. It's just amazing that we're here in 25, and
Yeah.
um you know Billy's reading out of a first edition today, so we're still going to be able to pull it off though, because we do it by chapter, not by page,
Purchase in Williamstown.
where it was written. All right, just
Um,
take us into the spirit of the text,
all
Billy.
right, chapter 7. Freddie and Mildred Kassab visited the cemetery every day in March, bringing fresh flowers each time. Other than that, they went nowhere and spoke to no one. No one called, no one visited. Letters of sympathy piled up unanswered. Excellent semicolon use by McGinniss here. The
Wow.
list. No one called, semicolon. No one visited, semicolon. Letters of sympathy piled up unanswered. Though neither she nor her husband felt the desire to eat, Mildred suddenly found herself with an inexplicable but irresistible compulsion to bake. She baked pies, cakes, cookies, and bread at all hours of the day and night. The aroma of her baking filled the air. Soon the refrigerator was full, then the freezer. Still she baked, stacking loaves of bread on kitchen counters. Mildred seldom spoke to her husband. He very seldom spoke to her. There was, they both felt, nothing to say. Nothing would ever be worth saying again. Words could neither soothe nor heal nor undo death. So the Kassabs existed side by side in a silent darkness beyond words. Let's just take a minute.
Yeah.
It's incredible writing.
No, it's breathtaking. Um, he's really it's like this was magically written.
Yeah. Yeah.
Silent darkness beyond words.
Uh,
And he's trying to do his best for them here. And he is.
yeah.
Um,
You can pick it up.
sure. Okay. A shipment of clothing arrived from 544 Castle Drive. Just a quick aside. I remember I hopped into the Audible reviews of this book, or maybe it was Amazon. I think it was Audible or Goodreads. I don't know. Why did he have to keep saying the whole address so many times? What a funny thing to be bothered by. Anyways, 544 Castle Drive. The contents of Colette's and the children's drawers and closets. Items that have been deemed of no evidentiary importance. Mildred sat alone in her bedroom, sorting the clothes, suffering new stabs of agony every time she came across a little dress or coat she recognized. Worst of all was handling Colette's nursing bras and maternity girdles. The new baby would have been born in July. On routine errands, Mildred would see a pregnant woman and start to cry. She would see a bearded, long-haired hippie and feel an almost uncontrollable surge of hate. She could not understand why the killers had not yet been apprehended. Mildred was not a strong woman physically, only 5 feet 1 inch tall and very thin, but her grief and rage were immense. At Womack Hospital that first afternoon, she had said to Jeffrey MacDonald, "If I ever found her, the blonde in the hat and the floppy hat, I would tear out her eyes and her tongue and turn her loose." Her desire for vengeance was undiminished. It was the only feeling left to her other than pain. Eventually, she had to stop her baking. The kitchen could no longer contain what she produced. Yet not a single piece of cake nor slice of bread was ever eaten. She and her husband were utterly without appetite. At the cemetery, she would whisper to Colette, "Help us, help us." Then she and Freddie would return home.
Okay, so that now there's a little section break. So
Yeah.
that's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 paragraphs, but quite short paragraphs, some just 2 or 3 lines. And what a picture of their relationship in grief.
Yeah. And it's actually an incredibly, you would think that whenever I read this part, I always imagined it. And I think the first time I read it, I imagined it was going on for like, this is dragging on for months and months, but this is just a matter of a couple. This is just a month later, a
Right,
few weeks.
right.
So,
And and
um,
and Joe got to know them, and like you said, Joe's really writing his best for them. He's
yeah.
rendering them very vividly and in their complexity as well. By which I mean we're seeing that their relationship is broken in some fundamental way because of what's happened. They can't even speak to each other anymore. But nevertheless, they're side by side.
Oh, yeah. And you forget for a minute that this is an unsolved homicide, and then he brings us back into what's driving the whole book here, which is the crime and it's the unanswered questions,
Right,
with Mildred's being really astonished that they couldn't find these people yet.
right. At 17, Mildred Kassab had married a man 10 years older than she was. All right, so I guess we're gonna get some background. We're gonna add some texture to the Mildred character.
Mm.
His name was Coles Stevenson, and he had owned a luncheonette in downtown Patchogue, an undistinguished working class town on the south shore of Long Island, physically quite near, but socially worlds removed from such fashionable resort communities as the Hamptons and Amagansett. Mildred had wanted a baby right away, a girl whom she could dress up in fine and fancy clothes. When she became pregnant, she and her husband transformed one room of their small rented house into a nursery. They pasted silver stars on a pale blue ceiling and nursery rhyme characters on peach pastel walls. They painted yellow and white ducks on the floor. In a closet, they hung a little fur coat and a row of tiny frilly dresses. Mildred decided that if the baby were female, she would name it Colette after its father. The baby was female, but stillborn. That had been the first Colette. A second pregnancy resulted in another female infant, the second Colette, also stillborn. A year later, the third Colette was born. The baby died within weeks, however, following surgery to relieve an intestinal obstruction. Mildred did have a healthy male child, and then 4 years later, on May 10th, 1943, she gave birth to the fourth Colette, the one who would live, the one who would marry Jeffrey MacDonald. Hmm. So much pain in her life.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's about to get worse. One Friday evening in the spring of 1955, Mildred was returning home from having picked up her son at a friend's house. As she opened the door to her garage, the car headlights illuminated the interior and she could see her husband's bathrobe hanging from the rafters. In the same instant, she realized he was in it. Coles Stevenson had left no note. He had not seemed depressed. There had been no sudden trauma in their life. Mildred told friends she had no idea what had driven her husband to suicide. Colette, who was 12 at the time, had been spending the night at a friend's house. Her Aunt Helen had broken the news to her because Mildred could not bring herself to do so. Her father's death was the one thing in later years that Colette would never talk about. Not to her mother, not to her friends, not to her eventual husband, Jeffrey MacDonald. When she met Freddy Kassab a year later, she told her mother right away that she hoped the two of them would marry so that everything can be the way it used to be again. After the marriage, Colette began immediately to refer to Freddy as her father. Never did she call him stepfather, nor would she permit her friends to do so.
Wow.
Uh, that's a lot. That's a lot right there.
And what happened in Freddy? So I remember in the earlier chapter, your dad fleshes out Freddy.
Yes.
He
So
lost a
this is
wife too.
yep. So we're getting the other. So we got Freddie's sort of like background before how he had been married with a kid in the UK, and they were killed in
In
a
in the
Nazi
in the bombing, yeah.
bombing. And then Colette's mom's the series of three still ch lost children is so hard to bear. And then Cole, yeah, the story. I mean, Cole's is kind of is a cipher in this book, and he's a cipher to everyone that knew Colette too. Apparently, she just never talked about him. Freddie just assumed that role.
Yeah. So there was this connection for all of them that was for
Yes,
in loss, but this was like their attempt at a restoration.
yes, and to build up the family, and
Yeah.
so you always think of one of those events or all of them, or at least the end, maybe the section break is like, okay, we're finally out of the woods of nonstop agony. Um, and then you remember what book you're reading and why you're reading it.
Yep.
So you can pick it up, Billy. Thank you.
Mildred had arrived at the Princeton Medical Center in April of 1964, the day after Kimberly was born. Colette had been holding the baby at her breast when her mother had walked into the room. Looking up from her bed, Colette had reached out and had handed the infant to Mildred. Here, Mom, Colette had said, her eyes moist. Here is one of your lost little girls. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
Now they were lost forever, all of them, and immersed in her pain and surrounded by late winter gloom, Mildred Kassab felt that she did not want to lay eyes upon or speak to another human being ever again. The Kassab solitude was interrupted only once on March 19th when CID agent William Ivory arrived at their home to ask questions about Colette's relationship with Jeffrey McDonald. Ivory had been on Long Island for a week, interviewing residents of Patchogue who had known McDonald since childhood. He had compiled a summary of their comments in a notebook. The best student I ever had, said a former English teacher.
Oh, so now we're back to how awesome Jeff is.
Yeah. Possibly the
After
finest kid. After what?
after this like the most vivid depiction of Job like loss. And then it's just McDonald is just crushing it.
Job, good foreshadowing.
Yes.
Possibly the finest kid ever to come through Patchogue High School, said another. I am still waiting to see his equal. He is absolutely not capable of doing this. He is incapable of any such action. Jeff and Colette got along beautifully. I was especially impressed by how proud they seemed to be of their kids with the way Jeffrey exhibited his affection for the babies. The kid I knew could not possibly have been involved in this. The Jeffrey McDonald I knew would not have done this. Not Jeff. Absolutely not Jeff. Want to bring us home?
Yeah, I'll take us to the finish line. An agent who accompanied Ivory to Patchogue remarked that McDonald seemed to be little Abner with straight A marks. Uh, I think that's an old Funny Pages character. We'll have to. This book is hopelessly dated in that way, I guess, right?
Hmm.
Do you know who Little Abner is?
No.
No. All right, so that'll be in one
Sounds
of the
very
Easter
dope.
eggs.
Sounds
It
very
sounds
dope.
really dope. I think it's yeah. And even the Fort Bragg provost marshal was prompted to comment that from all outward appearances, it was as if the all-American girl had married the all-American boy. Freddie and Mildred Kassab, in their grief and isolation, sang his praises with special fervor. Colette's mother told Ivory that she had encouraged her daughter's relationship with MacDonald from its inception. She said that there had been no one in Patchogue, no one she had ever met anywhere, who had seemed to her a finer prospective husband for her daughter. The marriage, though it had come about sooner than it otherwise would have because of Colette's pregnancy, had been ideal from its first day to its last. The Kassabs told Ivory that they had maintained extremely close contact with Colette and that at no time had she ever seemed less than totally satisfied with her domestic situation. During their Christmas visit to Fort Bragg, the Kassabs had found the atmosphere to be joyous, and as late as Sunday afternoon, February 15th, only 36 hours before her death, Colette had sounded the way she always did, calm, untroubled, content, at peace with herself and her life, and looking forward with great anticipation to the birth of her third child in July. Perhaps she had told her mother this would be the son that Jeff had always wanted. End of chapter.
There you go. Lil Abner was a satirical American comic strip that appeared in multiple newspapers in the US, Canada, and Europe. It featured a fictional clan of hillbillies living in the impoverished fictional mountain village of Dogpatch, USA. Huh.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm not seeing the connect.
However, Lil Abner before Okay, the comic strip typically dealt with northern urban American experiences. Abner is portrayed as a simple-minded, gullible, and sweet-natured country bumpkin. All right.
Also, it seems they were a little hostile. I mean, I think they probably had good reason to not have a charitable view of McDonald. But then the sort of assessment of him as a rural figure is pretty funny to me. But I guess Patchogue is like the dregs of society.
Yeah.
To Ivory's unnamed associate.
All-American girl had married the All-American boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Oh, it's really remarkable for its portrayal of their grief and Joe's empathy and
Yeah.
deep, reaching deep for the poetic flourish they deserve.
Yeah. That's not something he often does.
No, I think that's why it's so skillfully rendered here when and it's so heartfelt because he is such true reverence for them. So there's nothing contrived about it. The same way there's nothing contrived about his talking about meeting McDonald and he's the most worthy of love and he's dispensing medical advice and just the contrast to their earnest, long-suffering goodness and McDonald's smug dick behavior. Um, then next week we're going to get back to, just to jump ahead, just to see where we're going. We're going to get back to another McDonald narrative.
Yep. Which
So
are all, those
that's
are
to look
always
forward.
fun.
We got that to look forward to.
Yeah, we got that going for us.
So we got that going for us, which is nice.
Back on track.
Back on track.
Um, you know, Joe does a great job here. And I think we explored this idea in an earlier episode, but like a choice a writer has to make when describing such horror and such trauma
Yeah.
and he, Joe is just laying it out here. Like the paragraphs are like a sentence or two a piece. It's like stillborn, 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 suicide in a space of, half a page or something.
Yeah.
It's there's like it's just he's hitting you with it.
And then I don't know. I've had the experience of reading that part where Colette gives Mildred Kimberly, and here's one of your lost little girls, and then
Oh,
he just pivots to and now they were lost, all of them. Um,
yeah.
I would have just been I was in that scene to use a MFA word. I was in
Hmm.
scene, and then Joe just rips you out of it to where Mildred is now in the story, and um,
Yeah.
I do recommend. There's a great part of the documentary by Mark Smerling where Colette's brother tells the same story about the lost little girls. Uh, and that's very very well very good viewing.
God.
But yeah, it's kicking. We're crushing it. This is an amazing book, and we're Joe. You're just the best. Thank you.
All right, we'll pick that up. Pick up the story next time. Hey, mom,
Yeah,
mom, if you're out there, I hope this wasn't too boring. I'm sorry,
yeah.
sorry for what we said.
There's no way you made it to the end, but if you did, thank you.
Michael,
And hey, glory to God.
yep, let's not forget who's in charge here.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
That's why we're doing this.
Yes.
All right.
Signing off.
Signing
Good
off.
night, everybody.
Good night and good luck.
Yeah.